Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. I hope we're all doing really well today. Um, just wanted to start off, as the thumbnail says, with the absolute horrific and tragic passing of Liverpool's Jota and Werder Bremen's Andre Silva. As you may have seen over the last couple of hours, the breaking news that they both tragically passed away in northern Spain whilst in a car crash. Just absolutely, I don't even know what to say. I think things like this transcend, and my condolences to the family who have obviously lost a father. They've lost sons. You know, Jota had three children. His wedding was 10 days ago. And a young man, two young men, with the world at their feet. It's just it's just awful. And as a father myself, I can only imagine um what their parents must feel, their wives, their other halves, and their children. So Yotta has three children, and I just can't imagine what they're going through, what they're feeling. And it's times like this, I guess, that pales into comparison the transfer window. Liverpool and United, I condolences to their fans as well. I honestly, there are things that transcend football, and in times like this, I do think we should come together, offer support, and everybody's welcome here. Again, as long as we're kind and respectful, which I think today is really one of those days that goes to show that why patience, or respect are really important. When two young men, and this kind of thing doesn't happen a lot. I mean, there are children, people, husbands, fathers, wives, who die every day, and this is a reminder of how tragic life can be. It doesn't really matter about status, doesn't really matter about the job you do, doesn't really matter about how much cash you have in the bank. No, everybody is susceptible to things like this. So it's just absolutely horrific. And as I say, my I just don't even know. It's such a shock. As a player, um, Silva, I don't really know much about him as a player playing in the Bundesliga. But Jota, always had respect for that player at Wolves. Liverpool, I always thought that he was an absolute, you know, amazing player. I think he fitted into that team extremely well. Three kids. He seemed like a really nice guy. And I just think it's just horrific. I remember. Um, um, I remember. Can't remember his name now. Used to play for Arsenal. Somebody in the chat will know. And when footballers pass away, I can't even speak, to be honest with you. I think it's awful. I just keep thinking about. I just keep thinking about his children. I keep thinking about or I just keep thinking about. Imagine having to tell those kids. Imagine informing his other half, his parents, his mum, his dad, and those kids as well. It's just horrific. And to be honest with you, I thought it was the right thing to do to come on today. As a United fan, as a channel, just out of pure respect. I think it's really right that any channel of any football needs to come out and needs to acknowledge this today, because things like this don't happen a lot, and it's really important that when two young men um, this kind of like happens to them as well. So, and I'm one of three boys as well. So, you know, I just, you know, talking about it really is really, for me, is just really, really quite sad. So, you know, I think it's awful. So I don't really talking about news today. You know, I need to mention some stuff today. It's not something I particularly want to do, but you know, I kind of feel obliged to say something really um, in regards to what we're trying to do in the window. And again, you know, it's kind of pales into comparison as to this today. You know, so when we're trying to argue over like £1 million there or £1 million here, you know, money, you know, it doesn't really mean a lot. So transfer news wise, take it away from the topic that's awful. Again, there isn't a lot that is happening out there, you know, for all those naysayers who were, you know, saying that we were going to do our business today as soon as the window opened. Um, there's not a lot happening. The Imbermo deal, which is again pales into comparison, really. No, obviously this player will sign. United have to do this deal, and I think he will sign. No, right now I don't really care. You know, whether we pay 65, 70 million for this player, I might feel differently tomorrow. You know, whether that is the case, and if it is that, do we need to walk away from the deal? Walk away from the deal. You know, I don't think we should. I think we're too far into the deal. I do think that United, when it comes to this deal now, they're putting it out there that Brentford want 70 million. I don't think that's true. I think that's them trying to save face. I think the deal will be done for around 62, 65, which is what they want to do. So we can't really moan and complain about deals. Although, as we know, we're not very good at this. So in terms of the transfers, we're not very, very good. So if we pay 70 million, you know, this won't be the first time that United have been taken to the cleaners. I don't think that is the case. Apparently, so Brentford are using the valuation from Spurs. Apparently, that Spurs reckoned he was worth, but never put in a bid. I just don't think it's true. I think it's spin from the club. I think again the club are just trying to spin. They're trying to. So when they do buy him for 58, I think it'll be 58, 59 plus 7 plus 6. Then again, they can spin us round and say, look at us. Aren't we so great? We've bought this player for under what they're asking for. So, you know, I just think that's quite sad. And again, they've absolutely sucked the life out of this deal. You know, I want this player. I think he will be very, very good. I was looking at some clips actually last night of him, and the more that I see him, the more that I like this player. With Cunha as well in those number 10s, you know, I think there's a potential there for those two to do some really, really good stuff. Link up well. So we need to hurry up and just get this deal done. You know, and the funny thing is, Sir Jim was saying that we don't need to run to a bad deal. We need to walk to a good deal. So we're basically walking to we're not even walking. We're crawling to a deal that is it a good deal. It's just a deal that we have to do. It's the market price. So we basically going to walk to. Sorry, we're going to crawl slowly to a market price deal. So Sir Jim again is just talking out of his backside, and we do what we've always done. So hopefully that deal will get done really quickly. Now overnight, so Dumfries from Inter Milan. This is a player like a left wing back or a left back that I've always liked this player. There's a rumor that there's a release clause for 25 million, and I don't even think that's pounds. So what's that, about 21 million pounds, all paid up front. And considering the first instalment on Cunha or in Burma would be 20, I think that this is a deal that I would go all out to get this player. He's a little bit older now, but he's a very athletic player, a mobile player, and for 21 mil, I think is an absolute steal. So if that's true, I would absolutely go and get this player. I think we're screaming out for a left wing back, a left back. And I generally believe that he would be a fantastic, fantastic player. This again is a player that I think that I probably think that we won't do. I think any other club would just go and snatch this and go pay it, but United, I really can't see that deal. Richard Rios, is it Richard? No, it's not, is it? Rios. Again, my brain this morning is just not it's just not right. I mean, it is amazing how in a sport that you love, um these things kind of happen. And it's sad when you hear about, there's something that happened actually quite close to me recently, whereby these kids were playing in a park in Essex, 7, 6, and there was about 5 of them, and a tree just literally fell on these kids, and one of them has passed away, another one will potentially pass away. And is these things in life that just absolutely like hit you for 6. You don't have to know these people, you don't have to know these kids, but it just hits you. I just think it's awful. And I just can't believe that this has happened. And in a game that I've absolutely loved, and these players that you follow, even if you play like computer games, football computer games, and like you buy them on that, and then you kind of almost have an affiliation to these players, and even if they don't play for your club, you can appreciate these players. You see these players and you look at their stats, and you kind of say to yourself, "Oh, I wish they would have played like for my club." Um, and like you jeer them, like you cheer them, and this happens, and it's awful. So Richard Rios, it looks like Inter Milan are after him. So again, this is a deal that I don't think that United can do. I think that, well, that's not true. They can do that deal, but they just don't have the capability to move that fast. So there's not a lot really happening. I mean, I'd love to know in the chat, how you feeling today, if you've already heard the news. Um, I would say to you, if you get an opportunity to offer your condolences to Liverpool fans, on Twitter and that kind of stuff, I would respect. And I think today's a day where football fans come together. Transfer wise, take it down. Well, let's just try to move it along from that. What are we going to do? Where do you think we're going to move next? So the Burma deal will get done. For as horrifically slow as it is, it will get done, and we'll have a here we go. I think probably next week now, because we don't do deals over a weekend. We seem to just basically just, I don't know what the hell we do. But I honestly don't know what the next move is. So Osherman apparently still on the cards. Again, is this some more spin? I honestly, I am so tired of the striker. We need one. Absolutely need a striker. See me talking about this every single day. At least today we don't have to talk about Sancho or other ones. So we don't have to talk about Rashford, Sancho, Anthony for today, which is always good. I just don't know where we're going to go next. So Ollie Watkins, the price for that, from what I've seen from Aston Villa, is 60 million. Now, do I think that price can come down? Yes, but Aston Villa need the money as well, which is 100% their right to do. Some people may argue that he didn't really play last year, and Emery doesn't like the player, has devalued the player. So it's okay for us to devalue our players, and people will knock off X amount of millions for our players, but other clubs don't seem to do the same thing as that. So I think Ollie Watkins, I think probably if we could do a deal for around 40, 45, I think I'd seriously look at that deal. 29 years old. It's a departure from what Ineos have said that they would like to do, but Ineos say all sorts of things and do the opposite of everything that they do. There's no doubt in my mind that the Glazers are still in charge. And the reason why things take so long, I genuinely think that Joel still having to sign off these deals. I genuinely believe that he still has to sign off these deals. I think it has to go to the board. I think that as per the last 12, 13 years, that whatever we do, whatever bid that we make, that it has to get signed off by the Glazers. So I think this is why it takes so long. And I wish that the media would investigate this and and just see if that's still true. But you know, they can't be bothered. So I just don't know where we're going to go next. And again, I just don't want to. As much as I love this, I think this is absolutely fantastic. I love you guys who watch. I think you guys are amazing. I would always say that the United fans, I think, are some of the best in the world. I think the match going fans are the best. They follow the team like home and away. People that consume United, people who are passionate about it, because passions do run very high. This is why we care. This is why we talk about the club, and we constantly get battered down, spun around, twisted around by this management, by the Glazers because they're still in charge, by Ineos, Sir Jim. We're just completely spun around every which way. When, quite frankly, all we do is we care about this fan. We care about this club and its fans. Even like today, when other clubs' players they pass away, who cares the most? It's fans. It's us fans. Who have to live this. We are the ones who are passionate, affiliated to these players, and this is why it's really important. And this is what they don't understand. And some players don't. How fortunate they are. How lucky they are to play for this amazing club. I would give my right arm to play for this club. I think most people would want to play for this club, and I would play for this club for free. Well, not necessarily for free, but I'd have to earn a wage to live. But I think that we adore this club, and there's just not enough respect for us fans. There's not enough respect, for us. We're not open. No, I don't understand when this club is not open more. Just to talk to the fans, just to let us know. But they never will, because they will ultimately slip up. So again, if anybody wants to talk about anything, you're more than welcome to get into the chat. I'd love to know, what's important to you. If there's anything you want to talk about, anything that you think. So, for example, where do you think that will end up this season? What position do you think that we will end up in, and I will give you my opinion on that. And it can only be based on the players that we sign, or players that we've signed now, and the players that go out of the door. What players do you think that will sign? I'd love to know what players you'd love to sign. So what I try to do here is I try to be as open as I can. There's no, in my opinion, people have their opinions, and as long as we are respectful of each other's views, we don't have to agree. But as long as we are respectful, then I think the more mad the opinions, because I'd love to know what goes through people's heads. I mean, I've had opinions in the past that have been absolutely mad. And this is what it's all about, is when you talk to your friends and you're talking to your mates, and you all come off with these, who you'd love to sign, who you think that we could sign, who would be your dream to sign. Where do you think we're going to end up in the end of the year? Do you really think that Ineos are in charge? Do you support Ineos? Do you support the Glazers? I mean, I don't. I'm of the opinion that the Glazers and Ineos on this club, they're in it together. They're in it for the stadium. They're in it for the money. And it's going to be us fans who suffer, even when the stadium's built, giving us a shiny toy, and our stadium has been left to rot, which I think is an absolute. I've got no words on that either. It's been people's home. It's the thing whenever every single game of football that you watch, in terms of like a match when they used to be free. I'm that old now that when I was a kid, matches used to be free before the invention of Sky. And watching those free games, I remember being just in awe of the stadiums, like the crowds, and the fact that that's been constantly there with me, that ground, since I was 4, and I'm 42 now. So 38 years of that ground. It's just such an iconic ground, and that's been left to rot. So that's where I am on them. Where do I think that we'll finish? So where do I think that we'll finish based on the transfer news that I've heard? So potentially Luis from Juventus, Osherman, Ollie Watkins. Let's just say we get one or two of those players. So let's just say right now we end up with just a front three. Okay, so Cunha, the Mbemo deal, and say Ollie Watkins up front. So I think that would definitely be an improvement on last year. Now, I think one of the things that will really help us, other than goals, being able to score goals, is the attitude of the players. So if Amorim, who, by the way, I think is on thin ice, as much as I don't want a manager to be sacked, I'm not Amorim out. I think last season, I think he could have improved players. How do you improve these low IQ, low mentality players? Not all of them, but a big percentage of them. I would have liked to have seen him just install something in these players. And for me, that was a red flag last season. The fact that I know he came in, the players were trying to learn a system. And as much as they couldn't, I don't understand why somebody like Fernandez didn't have the respect enough for the manager to do what he's asked him to do. Or did he ask him to play that role? So that's a red flag for me, that Amorim couldn't do something with these players. And I don't mean win tons and tons of games. I'm just talking about the attitude and the drive of these players. Also, the fact that he's called some of these players out, a lot of them needed to be called out, but at the same time, you are devaluing these players. And then that final playing Mason Mount. So one of the big things that I want to see more than anything else really is the attitude shift of these players. So I think if we can have an attitude shift, and what I mean is that, these players start showing this club and these fans some respect, work harder, be a little bit more cohesive as a team, I think automatically that will make us slightly better. And that does come from the manager. So, as much as, again, all these players at the club, there's a lot of things happening, again, that affected the players. So, if we can offer that stability straight away, then I'm really hoping that we can at least improve on 15th, maybe just a slight tweak of the club, how they behave, and how the players are next season. That little tweak already, I think, will serve us in good stead. Now, the players that we need to buy in, their mentality of these players, as much as they're not winners, what I'm hoping for is their grit, the fact that they have played for, and I don't like this term, but lesser clubs. So when I say that, and that's no disrespect to these clubs because they were better than us last season. So in terms of a season, they had a better season, but whether we like it or not, or whether other clubs like it or not, we are a big club. We are the or one of the biggest clubs in the world who had a awful season. So we need to bear that in mind. So what players that we need now are these fighters, who played for lesser clubs, who are going to offer that fight. So if somebody doesn't pass them the ball, will they grab them by the scruff of the neck and actually shout and scream at them? And will they be allowed to do that? So, like the Cunhas of this world, I really hope one of the biggest things, I think, more than goals, and I really hope that he does score goals, is the fact that the attitude of this player will infect this club. And what we now need, instead of being infected by money grabbing, egotistical, narcissistic players, I hope we're now infected, especially the young players, by the work hard, by grit, by you have to get your head down, by which will, in my opinion, create different players, hungry players. And that's what we kind of need, is we need a mixture of that hunger and that class as well. So the fact that we've got the two number 10s in, I think that will, as long as they can follow the system, I think that will absolutely help us out completely. Striker wise, I think that we need two strikers. So I don't know what you feel. If you want to get in the chat to let me know if I'm mad on this. So Rasmus, I don't mind if we keep him as long as we sign another striker. Now, by all reports, is that he's going to go, and then we're going to get a striker in to replace him. I think that's wrong. I think that is so naive. Even though we only have the Premier League next season and some of the cup competitions, which I think is crazy. We still need a striker, because if we buy a striker, a world class or a striker that can actually score goals, if he gets injured, then we're left with OB and that's it pretty much. So Xerxes, I think, can play that role, but he's not number 9. He can play there at a pinch, but I just don't think that he is the right player. So Rasmus, I would like him to stay or get another striker. Now, I do have a fear on this striker, and I've said this probably for the last 4 or 5 shows. Vardy or a Lewin. It's Calvert Lewin. I can see this. I can just see this a mile off. I can absolutely just see us doing this deal. And my biggest fear is Rasmus stays, Lewin comes in, and OB. So we've got an OB, a Lewin, and a Rasmus Højlund up front. And if those are our front three, then I despair. Vardy's still out there as well, so I wouldn't. I don't think that we should rule out any possibility, any combination of the strikers, because I can see us doing some absolute crazy deals. Okay, I will. Well, Fred, thank you for that, mate. I will change the thumbnail. It's not as if you started the show. That wasn't what I tried to do. I've tried to be respectful, but I will more than change the thumbnail. So thank you for letting me. Thank you for that. And if obviously anybody does feel that I've not respected the plays enough, then I apologise. But that wasn't my intention at all. So I apologise to you, Fred, if you feel that way, and your opinion is then that's fine. But that wasn't my intention on that. Hello to Mike Harris there. Yeah, I think you're right, mate. So rest in peace to Jota and Silva as well. I think that's awful. And thank you for that as well. Interesting opinion there as well on would I settle for relegation and a new manager on board. If I'm honest, yes. If relegation meant that we got rid of the Glazers, Ineos, and we started again, and I would happily take that. And that's my opinion on that. You know, you may have a different opinion. If it meant going down, getting a manager, change of the manager, if it meant that a new board comes in, then I think I'd happily change that. I'd happily accept that, because I just think that this club needs a reset. We either need two things to happen, in my humble opinion. Is number one, we either need a reset in terms of we need a newer owner who's rich, and comes in and basically just comes into the club and changes it, buys it, everybody out, pumps in cash, pumps in what we need to, and we do it that way. Because I think ultimately, if we don't, then we're going to fall behind, particularly with the people that we've got in charge. However, and there's a caveat to changing the board. So if we change the board and we went down and had a reset completely, that to me would be, as long as the Glazers are out, I would accept that. However, then we would then need to accept how difficult would it be then to get back up to the top. If, as fans, we're not fussed about getting back to the top, if we are, what we care about is getting back to our roots and care about this club getting back and going back to the fans, then that's fine. But if we go down and people want that, and they then want to come back up again and compete, I think that'll be very difficult. I think it will be 30 years before we do anything, unless we change the board, we're down, and then somebody then comes to buy us out. So these are things I think that we need to discuss, Mark Harris, and I think that's a good point. What else have you said? This transfer window is a smack in the mouth, and the board. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Is it a case that they don't rate the manager? Because, so I will agree with that opinion when the window closes. So if we end up with Cunha in Burmo, a lesser striker, and that's it, then I almost think that you're right. I think that they need to back him, not sack him necessarily, but I think that they need to do something. But saying that, interestingly enough, Amarin apparently was going to walk away. So I, I just don't know what to feel about the coach right now, because I know that he didn't ask for these players, and I agree with that, Mark Harris. I think that Watkins and the goalkeeper um, from Aston Villa, I think would actually be quite a good deal. So we could get the Martinez deal and Watkins done for 80 million, 70 million. I think that that would improve us. Watkins, he's he's better. He's better than what we've got. Obviously, I think we should always try and strive for better. But again, if that's the best that we can do, I mean, it's not a bad maybe second or third choice. Yoku, thank you for that as well. Yeah, I think the Liverpool news today, I think I think makes people think no matter what fan base you're from, I think it hits everybody hard. So thank you for that. Harris instant upgrade would, and that, my friend, Mr. Harris, I think is spot on. I think Watkins would be an upgrade completely from what we have right now, because our front line is horrific. But the question is, and I think you can open this up to a couple of points here, is that Fernandez is going to be, and you've made the point there, would Fernandez supply him now? And he is the disappearing man. I call him the invisible man. Would he supply the chances? Can he this season? Can Bruno Fernandes, our captain this season, can he be? Can he be? What's the word? Can he be effective? Can he be disciplined? What Fernandes will we get this year? Now, secondary part to that for me is we could have got 120 million for this player, probably pushed them to 150 million. And that for me is going to be the question mark of this season, is that Fernandes can stat pad. The guy he loves his stats. Don't get me wrong. And I have to respect this, the fact that I would probably say that if it wasn't for Fernandez's stats and his goals and what he provides for the team, in comparison, the rest of the team were awful. If it wasn't for his goals, then we probably would have probably gone down or been super close to that last season. But that's not good enough. We still finished 15th. He went missing in that final. He's supposed to be the captain. He's supposed to lead by example. He got better for a couple of months and games, and then, like he always does, he drops off completely. And this is my fear. I think the fate of Fernandes is linked to the fate of the manager. He's basically put his faith in him, so we basically know he's going to start every single game next season. And the minute that Fernandes is not on it, the minute that he drops, I don't know what everyone else thinks about this, the minute that he drops, Fans are going to be on his back, and I don't know if he can handle that. I don't think he's a captain of the team. What I'm sort of hoping is that he has a fantastic season. He's disciplined and he sits in that number 8 role, and he kind of sits there and is that conductor who just kind of sits behind the two number 10s. He can kind of move around the upper middle of the park where he needs to come back, but just stays in that role and disciplined in that role. If he doesn't, then what I'm sort of hoping, and this is my kind of thoughts on it, is that if he is awful and fans get on his back, Saudi come back in and he goes in the next window. At that window, would you get 150 million for him then? No, I'd settle them for 80 million. Maybe, I just think that we need to forward plan. If it doesn't go, if it goes how I think it will go, Fernandez needs to have a blinding season. If he doesn't, the first bad game that he has, people will get on his back, and that's going to get in his brain, and he could have a horrific season. This could be the worst season that he's had, and I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope that he gets back to his best, but the jury's out on that one. So Mark Harris says, so to sum it up, so Amorim is a B-Tech Ten Hag without winning cups. Mumsy doesn't have the players, and he will be fired for not improving or winning. Why is he still in charge? And I think many people feel like that, Mark Harris. I do think you are justified, partly. This is just my opinion on it, is that I don't think he's been given his players. I do think he should have improved these players to a level, but fundamentally, irrespective of who's in charge, I just don't want us to be on the cycle of sacking managers. And this for me is the thing, is it doesn't really matter who's in charge until it comes to a point whereby they make mistakes. First red flag, first checkpoint for me really is the final against Spurs. Mason Mount starting that is an absolute red flag for me. And if we have more of those games, he has had a couple of months now in charge, and that's not a long time. And I'm not saying that it is. Doing the double, I completely agree, and I think there are a lot of fans. I was of the opinion before the Spurs game that he needs to be given time, and I do think that he still needs to be given time. What I think, Mark, if I'm being fair to him, is if we sack him or he goes, as a fan, I want to be comfortable with it. So then when we say that he's gone, I can be comfortable with saying he needs to go. And how that happens for me is he gets his players in. So once he's had a pre-season with the players, and I tell you why it's important this year as well, is that so as a fan, I want to be comfortable in saying that if and when it is time to go, not the whole of next season, no. So, and the reason for that is because if he's had a pre-season with his players, irrespective of how I feel about these players, then there should be an improvement in some of these players. They've been playing system, even if it's 5 to 10% more. They should at least start to understand the system. And I will question why Amorim cannot get his points across. That's number one. Pre-season, if he gets his players in, which I'm assuming he's getting his players in, and he has his say on the players. So if he comes out and says, I'm happy with the players that we have, I'm happy with the squad that we've got, even if he doesn't mean that, if he says it, then and Bruno Fernandes, he fought to keep him. So once he's had a pre-season, he's got his players in, then and we've only really got the league to play for. So whereas last year, in between playing all of those games, there wasn't enough time for him to get together with the team to instill. So, but he's going to have that next season as well. So there's going to be no excuse next season for him to not improve this team. And this is where I'm at. I want to give him time. If we get to 5 games and we're still playing the same football, what I want to see is that if I can see there's an improvement in the team, and say we're losing by the odd goal, but there's an improvement in the team and we're playing well, then I'd give him maybe another 5 games. But after 5, 6 games, say we lose those games, then I don't want him to be sacked, but I don't see another way. I don't see how we can go through a season. And do we have to admit that again? Ineos will have to take a lot of the blame here. Was he always on a hiding to nothing? Was he, was he all? What I mean is it the wrong manager or the right one at the wrong time? Is he what we needed? So if we get to 5 games, so this is where I'm at with it. If we get to 5 games and he's lost all of those games, or we take a point, then at that point, do we go? And he's got his own players, a pre-season, he's happy with it, and yet the players don't respond to him. Is it? And they're his players and they're different players, but yet these players are not responding. Do we at that point go, look, we like he's had an horrific season, and do we just need to accept that he's not the right guy? He is not the guy for us. Now I can see him being sacked, going to a different team and doing extremely well, but then if we get to 5 games and he's actually played all right stuff, the team is actually improving, people are doing what they're supposed to do, but say, we get caught cold, or we get 4 or 5 points, then I'd give him another 5 games. And then I see where we are then, because he's taken risks and he's going to live. I'm convinced on this. Fernandes is going to make him or get him sacked. And whether that's right or wrong, my opinion on this is that he's either going to succeed, he's either going to sink or swim on a single player. And you look how that over the last 2-3 years has figured out for the people, our players, they get people sacked. So he's either very naive, or he knows something we don't know, or he's got some kind of master plan. So I think the only way that we'll be able to tell, and going back to Mark Harris's point, is that whether the board back him, whether they really think that this is the guy, what our team will be come August 31st or September 2nd or 3rd, we will be able to tell what the board think of this player. I guess that's where I'm sort of at, I think, with it all. There's not a lot else. I wish I could do some more shows. I wish there was loads and loads of news out, and we could, I could talk about this all day long. I think that talking to you guys in the chat, I think, is fantastic. I love to talk about stuff. I could talk about football all day long. Mark's made another point there. So Klopp had the same thing when he managed Liverpool. He used all the players in the youth and was backed. And this and actually, this is the point I was just thinking of, is that I want to see youth players next season. I don't necessarily want to see them just thrown in, but I want to see us play the youth next year. What harm can it do? After, say, the first 3 games and we're playing awful, What's the harm in playing these players? What is? I would much rather give an opportunity to these young players who are hungry, who want to play for this club, than these players who get paid millions and millions a year. I want to see these young players in this team. The likes of an Obi. It'd be nice to put a few 60. You know, I don't disagree with that. I know there's others out there who would say, don't chuck the youth in. We don't want to burden them. And I'm not saying that we put them in and we start them. And I think, Mark, that's a really good point. I think that I don't want to just chuck them in. Okay, so they have to. So they have to have shown something. I don't see the harm in chucking them in for the odd game. Look at Heaven. I think Heaven is a really good example of when you trust a player, put him into the squad, and Heaven looks fantastic. I think Heaven is one of the best signings that we've made. He was cheap. Whoever was the scout on him, fantastic. If it was just luck, then fine. But he is an absolute phenomenal player. And I rate him a lot. So it'd be nice to see like the Kones of this world come into the team. I might be completely out there on this, but he does look like a good player. What's the worst that can happen? Is if we're playing crap and we're going to lose a game anyway, you might as well play some youth. So what I want to see next season, I want to see some of our youth players come through. I want to see them play, particularly even if it's in the cups. What's the worst thing is that we're not going to win a cup. Like, I want to see these players play. I want to see this youth. So we're spending all this money on youth players. We've got a 15-year-old, is it? A 16-year-old. And I want to see who's being compared to the likes of Messi. Get him in the team. Like, what is the worst that can happen? And as Mark said there as well, he basically just plays the same old. And I wouldn't mind if he played the same old football, but it was winning football. So you instill this into the team. They know their jobs. But you're right. If he's stubborn, like Ten Hag, and plays the same plays, even when they're out of form and they're not playing well, if he plays the same players, the same team who are playing the same way after 10 games, I think he's gone. I do. That 3-4-3. Are we talking wingers in the 3-4-3, or are we talking wing back? So, are we talking, wing backs who are going to go up and down the line, or are we talking about like a back three wingers, like a number 6 who's going to kind of sit there in front of the back three, and then basically just allow half the team just to attack, and we try to score as many goals as we possibly can. Old-fashioned wingers. So Bobby's entered the chat. Hello, Bobby. I hope you're doing really well today. I'm an old school guy, right? So I can't lie. I do love a 4-4-2 or a 4-4-1-1. I was used to seeing wingers, like proper wingers, like a Giggs or a Beckham. I love the 4-4-2. Left back, Irwin as a left back, Neville, and before him Parker. Actually, Paul Parker. Actually, I think he lives around the corner from me. But playing that kind of old school, I would play 4-4-2. I would love to see us play a 4-4-2 just for a game, and just get people on the wings and their job to run up and down that wing, link up with the left back, and put the cross in. So you've got the either side of the pitches locked down centre wise, and I mean that's how I always play in 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 football games. Always play that like 4-4-2. Um, it never works, but Bobby, hopefully we'll sign it in Burmo today. Rest in peace as well. Yeah, thanks, mate, for that. I think that's horrific, as you've heard. I think it's awful. And again, I just hope everyone comes together and are respectful to Liverpool fans from all sorts of clubs today, and that will be amazing. So Bobby says 4-1-1. Yep, I am a fan of that. Newcastle to win 5. But funky at the back. 5-4-4-3-2-1. Yeah, I'm a big fan of a 4-4-1-1, but you could do like a hybrid. And people, and again, my opinions. I don't copy other people. I think my nostalgia for the old times, I think impacts like how I know football has moved on and transcended, but I still think that you could have a hybrid 4-4-1-1. And I think that would absolutely work. You could even maybe, do a 5-3-2-1, which I think we play now. But I do like a 4-4-2 with proper wingers. This is what I want to see again. I want to see wingers. I want to see people running, attacking those players and getting crosses into the box. This is, I think Pep, as much as I respect Pep, and as much as the football is boring, I think he's been found out a bit. It's really interesting actually how a counter attack style really works against him. Alanga and Ghana hold the phone. I generally think that clubs are looking at doing wingers. They want wingers, and I almost feel like we're going to wing back. So I almost feel like we're missing a trick. We've got these three wide. So we've got these three players, and we've got these wing backs who are like up and down. But there's nobody to link those wings down. So unless we get absolute beasts, you can run up and down that wing all day long. I would much prefer a proper left back, right back supported by those wing players. And then you've got those flanks covered down completely. And then in that centre of the park, you have the defensive midfielder. You could maybe have one centre midfielder in there. You can probably still have your two number 10s even, or one number 10 in there, and then a striker up front. So I just hope, I really do hope that it's almost like we're doing like a tree formation. It's like it reminds me of what's that football film called? It's going to bug me now, and it's like a spoof film. I can't think of it now myself. But it almost feels like he's doing like a spoof, like a 3-2-2-2-1. I mean, where's the width? I just hope it works. I really do hope it works, and I hope I can be proved wrong. I hope people in the chat come back and go, "Hey, you were prat." You talk out your ass, because that means I'm wrong. That means if people want to come to chat and say, "Oh, you're wrong," you talk out your ass, then it basically means that I'm wrong and we are winning games. So more than happy for that. Mike Harris has made, again, I think, an interesting talking point about Alanga. Alanga, absolutely rapid, but at the time, again, favourites at FC. These managers and who come into this club, they seem to have these favourite players, which I get it. You reward these players that fight for you and respond to you, but and Alanga at the time, he was a young player, but what made the manager or the team decide who had the influence to say that Alanga, and I'm really pleased for him. I'm so pleased that he's managed to prove this club wrong. As to these players do, they seem to leave this club and want to prove us wrong. And he's gone away and he's proved us wrong. And that speaks a lot about this player. That speaks a lot about the buying club as well. So Mark Harris has a question. Does Amarin know his strongest team is the current team? Then I'm getting a beer. A beer, I'm going to have a whiskey. I don't think he knows his strongest team. I think in his head, I think he's got ideas, but I generally don't. I think he's got his favourites, but that's different to the best players. If this current squad doesn't change much, centre midfield for me is an absolute concern, probably more than anything else. We don't get, and I don't think Ugarte, as much as I'll give him a season, I just don't think he's the guy. And if he still plays the majority of the same team and we don't bring any more players in centre midfield, then next season is going to be an horrific watch. And if you guys want, then I will do a watch along for as many games as I can, and we can console each other together. I'd love to watch those teams, and I would love to watch those games, and see how we feel, to see who is right, who's wrong. But I mean, I'd love to be proven wrong on this occasion. But I think those games is going to be a lot of. Apparently, we're getting 4 to 5 in this window, but I'm going off Twitter. It's Bobby. I think as long as your Twitter is Ornstein or Romano, then happy days. But I think there's a lot of spin. Now, I would love you to be right. If we could get 5 players who go into that team, then I think we've got like half a chance. And people like me who right now are a bit skeptical, who are fearful of what could happen next season, I'd love to be proved wrong. So I would, but again, though, you're not wrong on that. Hopefully, Twitter people who are on these accounts, if they're right, more power to you, Bobby. So, okay, so let me ask you a question. So, what 5 signings have you seen? So, I'm gonna wait for you in the chat to let me know. So on Twitter, what signings have you seen that you think that we could get? So, these are the ones that I've sort of heard of. So, Rios, which I'd love to get him. So Dumfries. Today, I'd love to get him. Osman Deal is still back on again, so I'd love to get him. Who else is on there? Ollie Watkins. I wouldn't mind him. Not for 60 million. Emi Martinez or Costa. I wouldn't mind any of those players. Emi, Mbermo, Cunha, Gyökeres, and Watkins. I think we've got one of those players, but I think those 4, and maybe. So I think if we get those 4, so let's just say we only got those 4, we got rid of Rashford, we got rid of Sancho, Anthony goes. There's a couple of others as well. If they go and we sign those, then I think as a window, I think it's pretty good. I think that's a decent window, and we can do something with that. And Amarin then doesn't have an excuse. There is nowhere to hide, nowhere to hide with that window. If they invest in those players in that window, I'd like to see a centre midfielder come in as well. We can't have it all. If we have those players, which I think those are gettable players, if we have those, then I think we could push. I'd like to go top six, but it really depends on injuries and that kind of stuff. So I like those players. If we don't get those, then I worry deeply, and Amarin won't have a player to hide. So DJ Super Fly Guy, welcome to the chat. 16th next season will be progress. Well, that save scammering. Oh, I love that comment. That's great. Scammering. You know that's going to stick in my head now, right? So thank you for that. 16th next season. I do a front two of Watkins and Cheeto. No, mate. That's hilarious. That's going to stick in my head now. Scammering, I think, is brilliant. I mean that. Thank you for that. I love that. That's excellent. I don't think he's going to get the season. I don't think he'll get. I think he'll get 5 games. Ineos they're so scattergun. They are so. I just don't know what to say about him. I genuinely believe that they'll just sack him. I think he's got 5 to 6 games straight away. If he doesn't do something in those games, I if he if he starts off and has a good 5 games, he'll get another 5 games. If he does all right in the place, start to turn after that, I think he'll get another 5 games. United are building a new stadium. United all over the place. First team, then stadium. Agree with you. Can you imagine if we go down? Are they still going to build a stadium? We would have literally one of the best. I say best. It looks horrendous. We'd have one of the most state-of-the-art grounds in Championship. I mean, you invest, surely, as you say, that you invest in that team. That's I agree with you completely. It does look like a circus tent. It is just. It's quite embarrassing. We've almost become a banter club, which is. Oh, chat is cracking me up today. First 5 games are scary. I agree. If his first 5 games are bad, I don't think he'll make it to 15 games. I mean, I think that's nearly then like half this. Will he get to 15 games? Will they give him to Christmas? I think if he gets like an average point, so let's just say in the first 5 games, which are horrific, he takes 8 points, then that's kind of enough for fans to go, oh, okay. And then if he gets another 8 points and 8 points, will he then last to Christmas? And one of my fears is that he gets on survival mode, and once he's in that, then basically he's awful. So Rogers, how you doing? Yeah, I think the news is horrific. Thank you for putting that in the chat. I think it's absolutely awful. And again, everything that we're speaking about today, pales in comparison to what it is that we're trying to do. But I think that we need to pay our respects. look at what Spurs are doing, then you're spot on with our circus of a club. It is a circus. It is an apps. So it's almost like the tent is basically enough for our clowns, which is funny. So our players are clowns, and we're gonna have like a circus tent. So I think it's quite apt. Um, yeah, I think it's mad. Guys, I have to say, Rogers, yeah, awful. Thank you so much, guys. I'm going to have to go. I could stay on here for hours upon end. If you want me to do a watch along for any of the games, let me know. I'd love to sit here, guys. You all in the chat are fantastic. Thank you for not for me, but the messages. I think today's been an absolute horrific day for football. We need to come together and support these players and that kind of stuff. Yeah, people have said that, so I can apologise for the thumbnail. I'll get that changed. So thank you for that as well. As I said at the start of the show, no, complete respect for that one. To be honest with you, I was actually just in shock at that point, but I will get that changed because that's not right. Thank you for that. Thank you for everybody in the chat. It really does mean a lot. All the likes, it really means a lot. You guys being in the chat, talking about the stuff with me. It's good to get the stuff out of my head. It's really good to talk about this stuff. I don't mind as outlandish as you guys with your suggestions about players and the club. As I say, as long as we are all respectful, we respect our opinions, we can all have a laugh and some banter. Thank you, guys. Again, if anything does change, I will be back on again. I'll get the thumbnail changed, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much for the show, guys. Amazing, and I'll see you soon. Take care.